Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Live with CCO 13 with
Hi.
Alicia and Jennifer. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
I
Let
want
us
you
know
to
you're
know
with
it's
us.
very hot in Texas, in our part of Texas right now. They said the heat of the day was going to be 5 o'clock. Oh boy, is it hot.
I heard someplace
My neighbor's daughter is.
Go ahead. My
Oh,
neighbor's
that's
daughter.
okay. My neighbor's daughter just graduated from the Navy training and is now in Texas. And they have no air conditioning in their building. So
What part of
they are
Texas
super
is the
hot.
Navy? Are they down by Galveston? No,
San Antonio?
San Antonio. Yeah. Lankley or Lankley.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Something like that.
Something like that.
We
You
can
know,
say
you both
live
said
to-
something like that.
We can say hello live to all these people that we normally don't say hello to because it kind of takes us away from our thing. Hello, Whitney. Hello,
Yes.
Vivian. Hello, Dee. Who else we got up there? We got Alicia yet. So if you're in YouTube, let us know that you're there. We're always ready for your questions here. We've got a couple things prepared, but tonight is about you guys contributing questions and anything that comes to mind, let us know. Whitney usually wins. I want to say that from behind the scenes. She always asks good questions though, right?
Yeah, she's always she's in there.
If we still had
She
a
was there
CCO
last
VIP,
night, right?
if we had a CCO VIP club, she'd be in the top
Mhm,
5,
mhm.
I'm sure by now.
Rebecca, hello on YouTube. I see those
Sandra.
pop. There's a little bit of a delay, guys, on our. Hi, Sandra from Delaware. So if we don't respond immediately, it's either we're looking at the screen, we're jabbering or something. But again, it could be just that there's a delay with each of the social media and everything. Barbara, hello, and Escar5566. I was thinking Escargo when I first looked at it.
Escargo.
Oh, it says Esgar. We have 2 topics tonight. If we don't get to both of them, which we probably will, we can do it. Save one for next time. There's Violet. I'm not going to try to say your last name, Violet, and Tina, and they're on YouTube, and Anne.
Yep. We have Vivian and Dee and Sandra and Anne on Facebook. So.
Awesome. I'm going to drop off and let you guys go to it. I'm always here in the background.
All right. So the reason this topic, I think, was something on my mind is that there's been some recruiters on LinkedIn that were talking about some DOD jobs that are out there, and we've done, I think, some webinars on coding for the military DOD stuff in the past. I don't know how long it's been, probably the beginning of last year. I think we might have talked about it, but so we thought we'd bring it up again and let you know some interesting things. It isn't so different, except for your employer's very different. As far as, you're using the same code sets. You could do inpatient and outpatient and ancillary surgery, stuff like that. You could end up coding, all types of things, especially depending on where you're working. If there's a VA, hospital close to you. But Jennifer has insight in this because she's a military wife, and I live right by Fort Hood, and so hop, skip, and a jump to Fort Hood. I used to live in San Angelo, which has an Air Force base, which is Goodfellows, and then of course we were just mentioning San Antonio before we came on, and it's I want to say Langley. It's not. It's an LAN. It's something like that fort, but there's another fort right outside of San Antonio. Texas has several, I think, but there's several.
Yeah, Texas has a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And so there are jobs for coding for the military, and maybe if you guys want some input, if any of you guys are familiar with them, have had DOD jobs in the past, or somebody that has. I know that I've met people at conferences that were DOD coders, and I went back and visited San Angelo, and one of the ladies that was there was one of the DOD coders for that area. So I'll tell you a little bit about what I know and my experience with that, and then Jennifer can tell a little bit as well. Neither one of us have had DOD jobs. Okay. That being said, do we know people that are in the military? Do you know anybody that's a DOD coder?
I know somebody who works for the DOD. She's a statistician, not she is a certified coder, but she does it from the statistical end. She compiles all the reports and travels to all the bases to get to compile all this information.
Vicki says Lakeland. Is that San Antonio? Is it called Lakeland? Maybe it is Lakeland. Yeah.
That sounds right. Yeah. Sounds about right.
And okay, what you may or may not know about military bases, of course, each time there's a base, that base is usually a specific branch of the military. Right? So where I was raised was in the Ozarks of Missouri, and the closest military base to us was Whiteman's Air Force Base. No, Whiteman's. Where's Whiteman's at? Anyway, I get confused because my uncle was in the Air Force. We called it Fort Lost in the Woods. They were real close to us, and it's not Fort Lost in the Woods, but anyway, they would come down to where we lived because we lived in a resort area, and so when the guys got leave, or not just guys, women, they would come down to the lake, and then Whiteman is up a little farther north, and I'm trying to think of. That's the main ones that I know of in Missouri. And my uncle was in Cape Cod, and he was in also Minot for a while, but he was in the medical field, so he could never stay more than 3 years in one location. I don't know why, but I remember him making a comment that they always moved him around.
Yep. That
being said, each branch of the military kind of has a base. So Goodfellows in San Angelo was an Air Force base, and they did fire. They trained firefighters, and they also trained is it linguistics? And intelligence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so every morning they had a shell of a plane that they lit on fire every morning at the same time, and it would big ball of fire, and then they'd put it out. Anyway, that was just something that was because we lived right there by the base, and we would hear taps every night, which was, hear all that. So that was an Air Force base. Where we live by Fort Hood in Killeen, that is an Army base. And to the best of my knowledge, it's like the largest landmass Army base in the United States. 40,000 men, I think, or more. They have it divided up into quadrants. So they'll say, are you in North Fort Hood or South, and then of course, Air Force Base is down in San Antonio, and Jennifer's over she's closer to Annapolis, which was Navy, right? So your Navy bases are going to be more coastal, but that doesn't mean that you won't have
except for the one in Oklahoma.
Except for the one in Oklahoma. That's the one where they train submarines, right? Submarine guys. Those big body of water in Oklahoma. So you'll have all of the branches at the different military bases because they work together, right? So if any of the branches needed specialty training in firefighting for whatever, they might go to San Angelo or Goodfellows. I know that here, Fort Hood is, I feel like I'm not very bright about some of this stuff, and yet I see it all day. so it's infantry. And you can see all the guys, all the uniforms, men and women. I'm not exclusively leaving out women. I apologize for that. But they all have that particular patch on. But I did find, and helicopters and stuff, but it's infantry is what these military people are doing. But they do some other things, and that I found out that they train, and I think they said the Danish helicopter pilots. So they come over for 18 months, the Danes do, these, so many of them, they go through specific training to go back. And I thought that was kind of interesting. Now, why am I telling you all of this stuff? The reason, there is a purpose. The reason is that when you're dealing with the military as your employer, you may not be working remote, okay, because it's a security thing. Usually they want you to be, now that's not saying that they don't have that type of thing, but they want you to be locational. So there's some jobs opened up, I know, in Lakeland, that's down in San Antonio. There's like 3 or 4, and there's one up in Alaska. What if the base is at Fairbanks or Anchorage? I can't remember which one has the base. And I noticed that this one particular company had some like coders 1, 2, and 3, and then some trainers and stuff like that. But wherever you go, the thing that's not different is that you are employed by the military. You're not employed by the Air Force. You're not employed by the Army or the Navy. It's the Department of Defense. Okay. Now you may be working on a military base that's an Air Force base versus an Army base versus something else. Okay. So again, we have bases all over the United States and outside of the United States. There are also coding jobs outside of the United States on the base. You'll see that from time to time. Now that you know that, you also know that they'll be coding your, when the women come in, wives, or, well, I don't think, if you get pregnant in the military, don't they boot you out? I can't remember.
No.
They don't?
Oh, I see pregnant women all the time. No.
They're active military?
Pregnant
they
sailors.
Take leave?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
And I misspoke. So again, please forgive me if I say something incorrectly. Feel free to comment in the chat and correct me, and know that, again, I have only lived by military bases and had an uncle in the military, whereas Jennifer is an active military wife. So she'll be able to correct me if I blabber on too much. So, but okay, so you've got women delivering, right? You wouldn't think about that. Man, if you want to have a baby and not have to pay too much, I would think my mother, she and her brother were both born on military bases, and I saw her bill, and my uncle's bill was like $18, but hers was $35. She came 2 years later. No, 1 year later. Her bill was $38. His was like 18 or something. Or having that baby. So again, it is true that some people will tell you the reason they chose a career in the military was to help support their family financially and for the benefits, the health insurance, the education plans, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe they want specialty training in something, and that's a very cost-effective way. So not only are you going to be involved in reading encounters about the military personnel, but their families as well. Now, if you go to a base that doesn't have a neurologist, let's say, access, then they send you off base, right? But still, you could see neurology encounters. You could see pediatrics, you could see ENTs, you could see the whole gambit. And some smaller bases are not going to have the medical facilities that, like Fort Hood has a VA hospital on it, and things like that. Now, I believe too that if you're working for the DOD, you could work for a VA hospital. Isn't that correct? You could be, you don't just walk in and get a job at the VA. Yeah, because you work for the Department of Defense still.
Yeah, all of those are available on the USA Jobs, is where they would offer any of that. So yeah, anything dealing with that aspect. Yeah.
And there's 2 more points I want to make before I kind of let Jennifer tell more about what she would be able to give you from her perspective too. The first point, in addition to, well, so far what we've said, military all across the world, that you could be on any type of base, any branch, but you're going to be exposed to people from all branches at a base, and you're going to be looking at the ages, the demographics are going to be varied, just like you would see in regular population, not just military, because you're going to have anything from newborns, neonates, sorry, my dogs are barking, to children, to adults, et cetera, et cetera. The only thing, and I should say, the only thing you won't see is geriatrics, but you will, because the VA hospital is going to be dealing with geriatrics. So anything that you see in the outside of the DOD, you're going to see in the DOD. I can't think of anything that wouldn't be there. Okay. And then the next point I want to make is you're going to have to go through a security screening. You don't get these jobs easily. And if you do get a job doing this, the pay scale is pretty average. I would say you're not going to make more money or less money than what everybody else makes. However, you're going to go through an extensive interview, and they do a security check on you, and I cannot remember what it's called. It's got a specific name. Is it called SN something? Maybe somebody can tell me in the chat. There's a specific security clearance you get for being a civilian working on base, ultimately, is what it is. SN3 or something like that pops in my head. Once you get that clearance, that stays with you for a certain amount of time, usually. If you're actively working, I don't think that you have to renew it every 2 years or something like that. But let's say you work and then you leave that position, and then a year later you could get hired someplace else, and that security clearance is probably still active. I'm sure there's a time limit, but
yeah, they do expire. Yeah,
they do expire. So, but that means that this is not your regular reference checks. This is a security clearance. They're gonna go in and look at things and actually talk to people and call your references and stuff. They're gonna probably have access. I mean, I'm not talking about conspiracy theory, but they're gonna look at things that other people won't probably have access or talk about. Just because it is the military, it's the government. So don't freak out about that. I do know that there was a girl that was really excited about getting that job, and then she freaked out when they started doing the security interviews and stuff, and then just going on to the base. If you're a civilian and you've never been on a military base, inside it's its own little world. However, to get in and out is an ordeal. Unless you're active military, you get a little tag or whatever, and you can sometimes go in and out. But if you're going to go into Fort Hood, you get stopped every time you go in, and they run mirrors underneath your car. They check your clearance, and everything. So that is just a day in the life of a person that's going to be accessing the military. So some people that you have to be aware of that. And so that's kind of the points that I was going to mention about that. Jennifer, again, has a different perspective, because have you lived on bases as well, or have you always lived off base?
Let me think.
Because my uncle, they did both. He was a captain, and there was sometimes that he would live on base, and then other times they'd buy a house. And
yeah, my dad, we never lived on base. My husband, I think the housing, no, I have lived on base. I lived on Quantico, in Virginia. And then when we got to Pendleton in California, the housing list was like a year and a half long. So we just got apartments. And then since we've lived off base, because we own our own house. So, so typically, I've been on the base and I've been off, but I pretty much go on the base daily, and I don't even work there. So I have to, it depends on the security level at the time, the threat levels, as to how much whether they card every single person in your car, including my children, or, whether they just check your ID and wave you through. but they do that for everybody who comes on the base. Delivery truck drivers, construction workers, anybody who comes on base, everybody gets checked out. So you typically have to have a pass or the ID.
If you don't have a reason to be on the base, they just don't let you in. So it's not like you could go, I mean, because you can see into certain bases and you can see the housing and they have parks and they have stuff, you know, I know Fort Hood being really, really big. I mean, they have like a Walmart. I mean, I don't know, I can't remember what all they have, but they have a lot of really great stuff there. But you can't just like drive in there because you want to see what's there. They don't allow that. You have to have a purpose for being in there. Tell them about what to expect when you would drive up to a base, because these are your military people, so they're going to have the fatigues and whatever badges and stuff, and they will have weapons. It's their job, and there's things, you know, you can't just drive through.
It's really fun sometimes seeing the female MPs, the military police, or depending upon which branch, they call them different things. I forget. It's funny, I forget what they're called in the Navy because I always refer to them as MPs. Most of them actually are Marines, though. So Marines, technically, they call them MPs. But to have some 20-year-old girl at the gate with some big AK-47 is kind of funny, because I'm like, wow, that's
5 foot,
almost bigger than her. She's going to protect me? Okay.
And she's probably a Marine and can
she
kick
probably
your butt.
could kill me with a napkin. But it can be intimidating, but they are also, we have this one guy, every single time we go through the gate, we have Ohio plates on our car because my husband's military and his home of record's Ohio. So we have Ohio plates on our car, and every time we go through the gate, he stops us. I have a question for you. What state is round on the ends and high in the middle? And he's asked us this question like 16 times. And it's kind of funny because my husband outranks him. So he's stopping an officer to ask. And we just always go
home state.
Yeah, we always go Hawaii, Montana, you know. We always joke with him every time. And he still asks us the question. He asked my daughter the question like right after I came through the gate. My daughter was behind me and he asked her too. And it's like, okay. But yeah, I mean, they're all pretty decent. But it is, everybody gets checked. And you know, Alicia's been to my house, and you go to the end of my street and there's the gate. There's the fence for the base. So it is literally, you know, football field away from my house. So there is an actual gate where you can go into. And of course, I'm on that main road. So 7 o'clock in the morning, I can't even pull out of my street because of the traffic of people trying to get through the gate, because everybody gets stopped. Doesn't matter who you are. You could be the commandant of the base. You're still going to get stopped. So that's why it's always important to have, make sure your tags are always up to date and your card's up to date, and your, you know, all your information that you're going to hand them, you always have, and it's valid. So. Because they won't let you through without it. So if you forget it at home, you better drive home and get it.
If you have a DOD job like that and you're booking the clock, you're not going to get there on time. It's not going to happen. You know, and I think.
Go ahead.
You said that security level does make a difference, right? So there are times when they might
the actual
little
less security level. Yeah.
Than not, and so. You have to remember there's, you know, things going on that you as an employee and as a civilian employee probably don't have any idea of why they do what they do. And so, but, you know, for a person that's not used to that, that can be really intimidating. Just seeing a person in uniform if you're not used to that.
Now, actually, our base, we have a clinic. Our base is in Southern Maryland, so our base does offer a clinic, and that clinic would handle, they can do x-rays, they see military and all their family, because that's actually something kind of different that we talk about the insurance companies, and they use TRICARE, so I'm covered under TRICARE. So as a military person, you're able to use that clinic. A lot of people say, well, I want to use my own doctor off base. But if that clinic has availability to take you, you're at the clinic. You don't get to choose where you want to go. and so I have TRICARE Prime. I wanted to have TRICARE Standard. I wanted to keep my own doctor, and they said, too bad, you're TRICARE Prime. So, so because there is a base near me with availability, I have to use that. Now, if one of, if I had to go to the orthopedic, I broke my foot, I still have to go on base. They still have to review me, and then they have to give me a referral, unless I like went to the emergency room or something. But then they give me a referral to go to an orthopedic. Now, the closest base to me is Andrews Air Force Base, another closest base that has a hospital. So ours is just a clinic. So you imagine, you know, small little doctor's office kind of clinic, where if we needed other services, they'd send them to the hospital. My husband, being the active duty member, he can only be seen on a base anywhere. Wrong with him. So if he has something majorly wrong, like his cardiology appointments, he has to drive all the way up to Bethesda Naval Hospital, which is an hour-and-a-half drive on a good day in DC traffic. So, you know, it's very inconvenient for the actual military themselves, but they can only be seen unless, you know, there's some certain circumstance, but I'd say 98% of the time they make them seen by a military person.
That's a really good point, because I saw that in San Angelo a lot. We had 2 hospitals, and you're 200 miles from anything in San Angelo. They're out in the middle of nowhere. Okay, so you have Goodfellow, which has a clinic, but it was very common, and they called it overflow. You know, it's like, oh, nope, you can't get into the clinic. Everybody's got the flu. They send you out, you know. And that I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because that does make a difference. But the other thing that I've noticed here in Fort Hood, of course, they've got a very large clinic and they have the hospital over there. But I do see the military people in the urgent cares. You know, you go in, like I've gone into urgent care with different things for the children and stuff, and I'll see people in uniform. Now, they're never alone. So they're probably, like I said, it's their child that has an ear infection or whatever you would normally go to an urgent care. Now, we didn't see that so much in San Angelo, because you have to think about urgent cares weren't a thing, you know, 10 years ago, like they are now. Now you've got one on every corner, you know, but it is overcare. I mean, and they have to be able to, kind of as a sidebar, if you live in an area or working in an area that has a military personnel like that, that means you better know how to bill TRICARE. That is something that it's a little different, you know. Well, because you think Medicare and Medicaid, you know, federal and state, but it's like, it's not Medicare, but it is a government funded insurance. And so they have things that you have to do it their way to get paid, you know. So think about that. Bring your knowledge up on that type of insurance. A question came through with Barbara. She said, what job title would you look under if you're going to do the USA jobs for a coder? LinkedIn is a really good place to look, and they're under coder, medical coder. So I could probably pull up the email that I'd gotten off of LinkedIn, but I was gonna say Jennifer's probably already looking. She's probably got that.
Well, and I wanted to go into just real quick TRICARE Insurance, and then Whitney also said, "Can we talk a little bit about TRICARE Insurance?" So
absolutely.
right after I was thinking that. So we gotta remember about TRICARE has changed quite often over the years.
Yes,
so
it is.
recently, the most recent change was just a year and a half ago, because also TRICARE operates on a fiscal year, which begins October 1st. They're not a January year. So when they make changes, it's almost towards the end of the year, and you go, wait a minute, when did you change that? Well, because it's fiscal year. They operate off the government's budget, which is a fiscal year. So deductibles start over in October. So the most recent change to come about is TRICARE. TRICARE is like Medicare. If anybody's ever noticed, their Medicare contractor sometimes changes. I think in the 20 years I've been with our business, we're on our third Medicare contractor. So these carriers bid for the business of the military, just like anything else in the military. So, or government, I should say. So TRICARE has changed. We have TRICARE East, TRICARE West, and TRICARE Overseas. That's how they've broken it out now. We used to have 4 regions, now we're down to 3. So TRICARE East
when there was 4.
is Humana, and I forget exactly what TRICARE West is because they're over there. So I don't deal with them much. And then there's TRICARE Overseas. TRICARE has different levels available. So I talked about I'm on TRICARE Prime. I have to be seen on base by my primary care manager, a PCM, that's what we call them, to obtain a referral if I want to go anyplace else. So that's an HMO plan. The other TRICARE option used to be called TRICARE Standard. Now it's called TRICARE Select. So people might say, I'm Select, and you go, wait a minute, there's only Prime and Standard. They, of course, changed the names now. So there's TRICARE Prime, TRICARE Standard, or see, I'm doing it, TRICARE Select, which now is, they used to have a third option, TRICARE Point of Service. They've gotten rid of that. So TRICARE Select, somebody pays a deductible and then a percentage. So it's almost like a PPO type of plan.
Right.
A TRICARE Prime can still be seen without a referral. That's rather new. They pay a deductible and 50% coinsurance. So it's really in a patient's best interest if they have Prime to get that referral, because the deductible is like $300. It might have changed that this year. I can't recall. And then 50% of the services, that's a lot of money. Imagine going to a hospital or having a major surgery without a referral. That's going to be a big expense. So you can have different options. They do offer TRICARE. Don't think that they don't follow the age 26 for insurance. They go to age 21. They cover a child until they're 21. And if the child's still in college or needs insurance beyond that, they can purchase a TRICARE Young Adult plan. And then TRICARE Young Adult, they have to pay a premium, but then they get insurance coverage. So they don't follow all the same rules that came about with Obamacare. They have their own. And then, of course, there's TRICARE for Life. So TRICARE for Life is after a person turns 65, is on Medicare, then that TRICARE they had automatically switches to TRICARE for Life, and that becomes their Medigap plan or their supplemental insurance. So there's different kinds of TRICARE, and I do have to say, dealing with Humana, if you just go to TRICARE, I think it's tricare.mil. I don't think they changed that website, but if you just Google TRICARE, you will find they have this wonderful spreadsheet of every one of these types of plans and lays out the copays, the coinsurances, the deductibles, what age levels. They did a really good job updating their website. Something we do encounter here, because we do have people who are transient, they go from here to there, or they could just be visiting for, maybe they're on what we call temporary duty, a TAD, and they're normally stationed in the West Coast at San Diego, but they have to come out here for training for like a month. Well, if they injure themselves in that time that they're just visiting out here, they haven't been restationed, it's a temporary. We have to bill actually their TRICARE plan. So they're not covered under TRICARE East, they're covered under TRICARE West. So we actually had somebody from Guam or some other country that we had to figure out TRICARE Overseas. I think his daughter, well, he's there and his daughter's back here. but he's covered under TRICARE Overseas, so that's what they're covered under. So we it was something weird. So we had to figure that all out and talk to somebody about it and figure out where our claims go to. So it's a little interesting, but that website, we found every answer we need on TRICARE's website. So it is really helpful. So if you're curious how much copay you have to ask from a patient, which they changed those too, so it's like $18 and 30. They're odd amounts. They're not even. So they're kind of. It's like, what would you do that for? So okay, you owe an $18 copay. Well, who has $18 in their pocket? They have 20. Okay. So, So
those doctors' offices, those clinics carry a lot of cash.
Except when people keep coming in with hundreds, that cash runs out really quick. Why don't you go to the bank first? So it is a little different. We actually do have a lot in our area, which if you're, Alicia mentioned it too, they have Danes there. So people from Denmark. And we have a lot of people because we're a flight base for Navy pilots. We have a lot of people from Italy and Australia who work out of our base. They come here for training. Well, they're covered under TRICARE with some odd numbers. So it's not a Social Security number. It's not,
it's almost
they're
like they're
still covered
guest,
under TRICARE. Yeah, they're still covered under TRICARE. So it sometimes is a little odd when you get them, you go, but you're Royal Australian Air Force, why do you have TRICARE? So, so just, be aware of that if you're near one of these bases and go, wait a minute, why do you have TRICARE? So it's really interesting. And actually, I'm going to say, I don't think my base does the coding here. So I think our coding for all of our smaller bases, Annapolis, I mean, I'm around DC area, so we have Air Force, we have Army, we have Navy, and we have Marines all right around here, and Coast Guard. So we have everybody right here around us. So most of ours are handled out of the larger areas like NIH, Bethesda, Walter Reed, and Andrews. They're going to do the majority of the billing in those locations versus our small little bases. So they still handle, and if I go and be seen, I'm still going to have that bill sent to TRICARE, but I'm seen in my clinic so that I never get an EOB to know what they build, what the clinic build, but they handle all that internally because I'm not responsible for anything either because I was seen at the clinic. So
I think a key point though that you made early is that when you're dealing with billing, TRICARE, it changes all the time. Now we talk about Medicare changes, but it's Medicare, it's like year to year, right? And but it's usually not really big changes. I remember when they changed like the injections and stuff in the code set, and it'd been the same way forever, and everybody's getting denials, and it's like, oh yeah, because you were so used to doing it. So now that's for everybody because they made a change in the code set. If Medicare makes a change, like they no longer take consultations, right? Remember when they did that? These are like one big change, and it's painful. They rip off the Band-Aid. But with TRICARE, it seems like they're just all over the place because it's, like she said, fiscally run. If they don't have enough money, they're going to knock things out, and or you know what I mean? You never know what's coming the next year, right? It could be a major change or a little change, or, like you said, copay, $18.42, for you, but the next year it's going to be $22, and so you have to be adaptable. I think if you work for the DOD, you have to be able to accept change and be on top of everything, do research, be willing to go out and look and see, what's the latest. And, people, the people that I know that work for the DOD, actually more men that I've met, some women, but as far as men are not primarily who you see as coders, although there's a lot more than there used to be just like nurses. They'd always were women, and then there were men, and you kind of see that with the coding. But DOD, it seems like I saw a lot more men. And you're working on a military base. So what do we know about the military? They do things a certain way. They have standards, they have protocols, and that means the whole office runs like that. Who's your supervisor going to be? Probably somebody in the military. You know, they go through steps and stuff. Would you call it red tape? I don't know. There's things that will be very different working actively, you know, on a military base than it would be over at the hospital or at, you know, at the doctor's clinic, because it's privately owned, right? So be prepared for that. It's a different atmosphere. Now, it's not any less professional or more professional, I wouldn't say that, but your atmosphere is military. So there, I don't want to say anything not politically correct. They're trained to do things a certain way, right? And they adapt and everything. But I mean, you're not going to have the same type of lazy people. Can I say that? You know, I mean, everybody's regiment, they got a job to do and they get it done, right? They're still people, but it's a different format. Is that a way? Am I making myself clear without putting my foot, my phalanges, all the way up to the calculus into my mouth? You know.
Well, and the other thing, at 8 a.m., you better be prepared to also stand and observe the national anthem and taps. So, you know, those are things that people don't think about. Actually, when I go for a walk in the morning, my neighbor who used to be Army goes with me sometimes. And when they play taps, you can hear it all over. So I'm that close that
it was like 5 o'clock on the dot. Bam, taps was played.
Well, we do 8 o'clock is taps. You stand there and you wait. And it's so funny. If you were trying to get through the gate, those guards are going to stand there too, and they're going to stand at attention and they're going to wait. And once that's done, then they'll let you through the gate. I mean, things like that. You know, just things you don't think about, that this is part of their routine. And this is what they do, and we should be observing that too. So you think of it as different cultures. You might encounter people in your job that are from a different country, perhaps, or do different cultural events. It's a culture.
Even different
the military
states.
is a culture. Yeah.
Right. Different states too when you work on a military base, because it not only, like I said, international people coming in, but they're, you know, usually when you get a job someplace local, everybody's from there. Everybody grew up with somebody, you know, if it's a small enough place, you know everybody there. The military, somebody's from Georgia that's sitting next to you. Your supervisor's from, you know, Massachusetts, and then someone's from California, and it being very transient. If you're active military, 3 years, you know,
3 years.
minimum, you're out.
You know,
you know,
the only reason we're still here is because my husband's called a PMP. He's a permanent military professor because he is now designated to only the academy, and we will not move. So, but otherwise, yeah, every 3 years, someplace new.
Yeah.
Which,
and so,
you know, nice.
Military people are used to that. But if, you know, most people want to work at a job for an extended period of time. I mean, I think that's most people's goals. So you could have people in and out. The doctor that you might be coding for, he's out, you know, or even going overseas, active duty and stuff. And so, you may have, and they're still normal people, so it's different personalities, you know, maybe and that happens in the outside civilian world as well. But usually doctors don't go in and out unless you're at a big city hospital or something where people are interns and training and teaching hospitals, things like that. But not, you know, you get a cardiologist, he's probably going to stay there for 20 years, you know, things like that. So it is a different culture in and of itself. Now, these are all wonderful things to, you know, to get used to.
I did want to bring something up real quick. I know people mentioned the VA. So the VA, there are multiple entities that serve the military. So there's TRICARE, which serves active and retired military. VA is typically serving your disabled military.
Right.
They are most likely retired. Now there's something I want to clarify. Retired means they spent 20 years in the military. They did have for a while an early retirement because they had so many people in the military, they wanted to get rid of some. So they did do, after 15 years, what they called an early retirement. So they're technically still retired military personnel. But typically a retired member has been in 20 years or longer. Active duty is they are currently actively serving the military.
Right.
A National Guardsman is somebody who does their weekend, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks out of the year, the same as a reservist or a National Guard, depends on where you live and what they call it. Now, somebody who goes to the VA, they might have only been in the military for 3 or 4 years or 8 years or 10 years or something, but they have an illness or a condition in relation to their military time. So that may be a little bit different. You may have people who go to the VA for every problem they have because they don't have insurance and the VA will treat them. Or you could have people going to the VA, they could be your amputee members or somebody who was injured while they're in the military and the VA is only treating them for a particular condition, like their shoulder or something like that. But the rest of the time they can go someplace else. So, you know, and then there's what we have called CHAMP VA, which is a mixture of CHAMPUS and the veterans, which is for typically serving your disabled military and their spouses. So if a military member died in service, their spouse can still have insurance through the CHAMP VA. Right. So there's all different kinds of circumstances and different types of insurance out there. So I did have 2 questions come in about that TRICARE for Life. That is after Medicare pays. So once they are eligible for Medicare, then they go to TRICARE for Life. Right. Medicare primary, TRICARE for Life secondary, unless they also, after they got out of the military, they went and worked for the government for another 15 years and retired from the government. So they have Medicare, Blue Cross Federal, and TRICARE. So
and that's actually more common than you think.
Yeah. Oh,
now,
yeah, we see it all the time.
I used to teach TRICARE, you know, as part of the billing at the college and everything, because of course we really focused on it because we had a military base there. But, you know, one of the things that people would kind of forget or mess up was the spouse, a widow or widower, and their coverage. And then what if they remarried? You know, things like that. It changes all of that. But unlike civilian life, if you have 2 insurances, Medicare or you know, and another coverage, Medicare is always secondary, right? But in the military, like you said, that's different. It's because it's Medicare primary and then life. You know,
yeah, TRICARE is what we call a plan of last resort. It is always, always, always 100%. Okay, 98% always.
Yeah, and see,
last
that's what
resort, except for medical assistance. So if you have TRICARE and medical assistance, TRICARE's primary, medical assistance is secondary. However, if you have Aetna, TRICARE, TRICARE secondary. If you have Blue Cross, TRICARE, TRICARE secondary. Always.
Civilian life is different, you know, because that's kind of the way you look at Medicare. It's like, nope, everybody knows Medicare gets billed second, you know,
if
and then, you know, but it's different with the military. It's a last resort. So those are little nuances. Now, as far as the coder themselves, you know, coding and billing is right there together. So you could be required to do both, you know, be involved with both. So you do need to know know this. And there's ways to get more information. The couple questions that came through is that TRICARE share, TRICO share work. I know, how does TRICO share work? Did you already talk about that?
TRICARE share?
I think that Yeah.
Unless it's something that's offered in TRICARE West, I haven't heard of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not,
Unless
because
it's a
it's,
mistype of some kind or something. Or
may I know, how does TRICARE share work? Okay. Well, you might want to send that into the club or expand on that a little bit, Lawrence. I did jump out onto LinkedIn, and if you wanted to see what some of those recruiters were doing, the company was called SAIC.com. So you would go to jobs.saic.com, and then there's more things there. I was going to copy and paste it, and then I realized I have two absolutely different computers. So my PC, I'm running the webinar, but the Mac is over here, and I kept thinking, why won't it go? Oh, well, because it's a completely different computer. So I can't share that with you. So if you'll just remember SAIC, or feel free to go into the club and put a message, and we can follow up. Just say, hey, I had more questions about that DOD stuff that you talked about.
Yeah, SAIC is a big contractor with the government. They have a really huge building here, but they're not just medical coders.
Virginia was the call
everything. So yeah.
So, and they obviously have events, because it said, they said SAIC is organizing a medical coder open house event. Attend from anywhere. Reserve an interview time now at our virtual hiring event on August 23rd, 2019. And so, just go to LinkedIn and look up SAIC. This particular person's name is one I'm not even going to try to pronounce because it's foreign, and I won't say it right. So, I'm sure you'll be able to go onto LinkedIn and find, but there's a lot of recruiters on LinkedIn anyway. So that would be, and I know with LinkedIn, you can put resumes or something on there, and you can apply with your LinkedIn profile. I don't know, but there's some pretty cool things that you can do via LinkedIn, that if you're actively looking for a job that's a specialty type position like DOD or something else, then like cardiology or something, you can put those keywords and flag that for the recruiters to see. Just so you know too, though, if you do work for them, I'm sure from what I've heard, and when recruiters send me messages and stuff all the time, that they have a very, very good benefit package for you. So, maybe you are thinking you want to work for the DOD because of the great insurance they offer their employees as well. So again, now you're not going to be on TRICARE, but it is a government job, so you'll get a type of government insurance, but the pay scale itself is pretty comparable to everything else that you're going to see out there.
Now, somebody did ask, what do you search for in USA Jobs? You had somebody ask that, I think.
Yeah,
all I did was I started typing in medical coder, and it populated a bunch of different titles, and like this one is a medical records technician coder, and that's through the VA at El Paso. So, and what the job description is it's located in the HIM services at El Paso VA Healthcare. They are responsible for performing a quality review of patient care documents and assigning codes specific to the type of care provided. So, it's all the services that came through the VA. You're doing the data capture, and then you're submitting the charges. So they have a couple different titles, but I just started searching medical coder, and it kind of had a drop down menu of all different kinds of options to choose from.
Okay, so I when you did that, that made me think, I'll just click on this SAIC one, and actually you're looking at my screen, so I'll just I'll pull it over here for you guys. What do I think of that? So they've got 3 medical coders, 3 coding trainers, and quality assurance, 2 of those. So you can see these were updated on the 7th. Are we on the 7th? Yeah, it's the 7th. So Lackland Air Force Base, that's San Antonio. Then San Antonio, Texas, which is not the Air Force Base, but it's a job through them. So you got medical coder 1, 2, 1 and 3. Elgin is Florida Air Force Base. Trainer in Alaska. And I'm pretty sure that they sent a message or something that said that was, it's either Fairbanks or the two main cities there are, you know, there's only really 2, and I can't remember which one the base is on. Let's see, and then a coder 3, but that's an MC. Oh no, it's medical coder 3. Nellis in which, how far is that from? How far is Nellis from the Las Vegas? Do you know?
Oh, an hour, hour and a half, I thought.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of outside. I can't remember exactly, but it's been a long time since we were.
And then Travis is in California, of course. And this other one, oh, here, medical coding compliance specialist out of Alaska.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. The ones I'm finding here, just still under USA Jobs, is, you know, they look specifically for a claims documentation improvement specialist. We've talked about some of those. They look specifically for auditors. So there's different options out there. But then I'm kind of looking at the locations, and so we said, of course, Fort Riley. So there you're working for the Army. The VA at March Air Force Base, but then the VA in Saginaw, Michigan. And if anybody is from Michigan, that is not a really huge place. So to think that there's a job opening in Saginaw, I'm like, wow, and it's pretty good pay for Michigan.
I think
boy, you
that
could buy a
one
house
in
with
Elgin,
that.
I remember, was it Elgin? There's one in California that had come through LinkedIn, and I just went to go look and see where it was at because I hadn't heard of it. And it's a very, very tiny little base in California out in the middle of nowhere. So my
China Lake?
No, it wasn't that one.
They're out in the middle of nowhere.
And they had made a comment. I kept thinking, man, this sounds too good to be true, you know. And sure enough, I found out that they have a hard time keeping anybody there. This town is just, you know, in the middle of nowhere. But my daughter-in-law, my number one's wife, she was married before to a military person, and she has been on different bases, and she'll say, oh no, you don't want to live there. There's nothing to do there, you know. And so her understanding, that's a lot better. So this one that was a medical coder 1, this just gives you a little bit of, you know, information about what they're expecting and stuff like that. So the certifications that they take and things like that.
And because this is USA Jobs that I'm looking at, like one of these is for the Indian Health Service. So Department of Health and Human Services in Cass Lake, Minnesota. So you're near an Indian reserve there. Yeah. So it's, you know, because it's USA Jobs, so any of the government types of jobs, which would include your Indian Health Services as well, which of course, if you don't know, bills a little bit differently. So, so you'd have to learn expect to have a learning curve if you get a job in a federal clinic or in one of the health service, Indian health reserves, because they do things a little bit differently.
And that was, you said, was Minnesota, right?
Yeah, Minnesota.
I always get those 3 states up there. I always get them interchanged when somebody says, I did get to stay in Minnesota for 1 year.
Wisconsin,
yeah, they always do the thumb. They always say, where did, you know.
That's right.
There's a lot of people up there. If you guys didn't know, my husband's a Lutheran pastor, LCMS, and lots of Lutherans up there up north, you know. And they're always in those 3 places, and they always tell you, oh, we were here. Don't you know? No, I'm just kidding. How are we doing on time? Oh, we are, you know what, guys, we are right out of time. So maybe next week we'll take our other topic, which I was thinking that we could talk about, are you ever too old to be a coder? We get that question all the time. So again, we can talk about that. If there's anything that you would like for us to talk about that in this particular, our Wednesday night CCO Live, more casual setting where, kind of off the cuff type thing, ad-libbing, then anyway, yeah. You hear the children. Did you see Jennifer kissed her child goodnight a minute ago? Yeah.
He starts school in 1 week, so he has to start going to bed earlier.
Yeah. Some of you guys may have already had school start, right? I know that one of our CCO people, Tiffany, said that they started on the 5th already. So that all being said, you guys, make sure you go to the CCO Club. Ask questions. We're in there all the time answering them, as well as other people in the club. Our interns are in there answering questions. Students are in there making comments and encouraging each other. But feel free to let us know via the topic request at the cco.us if there's something you would like to know more about. We have other venues, as you know, that we do. We have our student and our club webinars that we usually do on Tuesdays, and then we have live events throughout the week if we're doing recordings during the day, and our Q&A webinars already coming up. And I think that Jennifer said today she's already picked out the 3 topics that she's going to discuss. I got one picked out, and it's about strabiscus, coding for strabiscus.
Well, that was you.
That I went ahead and picked out. I sent that to Jennifer. I said, hey, this one came in. This will be really, really good. If I said, if you don't take it, I'm going to take this one. And then I had another one, something else popped up, and I said, that looks like a good one. So again, we'll just tickle Boyd pink if we get all those topics ahead of time, and then he can start promoting them. Let him know the ones that we've already picked. We try to catch those current ones. Let us know if there's something you want us to discuss, and do more research, be a little more thorough on that Q&A webinar on the 22nd, right? 22nd. Is it on the 22nd?
Yep.
Okay. Anything you want to say, Boyd? I'll shut up and let you take us out.
No, just that everybody greatly appreciates your guys' inputs and sharing your knowledge with everyone. So thank you again for all the people who are out there in our chats and on watching this either during live or in the replay. We appreciate you being a part of the CCO experience, as we like to say. So thank you again, ladies, for being with us tonight. And with that, I guess we'll just say goodbye, huh?
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
All right. Bye, guys.
See ya.